you all are here with us today. So if you check the chat box, there should be a link in the box sent by Rachel that you will need to access the link. Use the access code 1234 that is shared on the screen right now, and then type in your UID so that we can have all of you guys' information for joining us today. And then we will be doing a Q&A after the end of our session today. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me, Kenyatta Malloy, in our chat feature, and we'll hold them to the end and go through them once we do. But feel free to send questions in as you have them, okay? All right. Again, our event will be recorded, so just so you know. All right. So, creating an online presence and why it's important. I think that we all have found it evident that the world we're living in today, due to COVID and just the general nature of how the world has been moving with digital platforms, having your digital footprint in shape is a tip-top priority. Social recruiting is becoming a lot more popular amongst employers as well, and some of the top platforms that employers are using for social recruiting of candidates are Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, Instagram. They use it to find to advertise jobs, to find talents, and to also communicate with the recruits about the company's culture. So I don't know how you all, your knowledge of social recruiting, but I did have a quick poll I wanted to take with you all. And if we could pop into the chat room to answer this question, okay? So how many employers do you think on average are using online searches and social media to do background research on their candidates? Go ahead and write in the chat any percentage that you think of employers that are researching their candidates that way. We'll take a minute and let some responses come in. All right, I see 65%, 98.89%, 95. Any more answers? Give it about 15 more seconds.
I think some are getting sent to me too, Kenyatta. So I'm seeing 95, 40, 60, 90, 80, 80, another 95.
100%, I see. Well, according to The Manifest, who is a business news and a how-to website connecting businesses with services that they need, data-driven benchmarks like how-to guides and things, this year they've conducted a survey of about 505 employers around the United States, and they had a 98% rate of employers who are doing the background research on their candidates. So out of that small sample size, you know, compared to the entirety of the US employment population, it's pretty evident that most employers are going to be looking at your background in order to figure out who you are. Now, excuse me, whether you choose to use a LinkedIn site, a networking professional site like LinkedIn, or a social networking site to engage with your industry of choice like Twitter or Instagram, it's just important to make sure that you have a cohesive image across the three. And while employers are also not typically looking to find things that will make you unhireable, that's not what they're searching for. You know, they want to know who you are and who they may be getting involved with, because the process of onboarding new candidates is very important. Building your digital brand and the importance of the extension of your personal brand, it will set you apart from other candidates by aligning your skills and your experiences with the personal story of who you are. So your resume kind of drafts this logical outline of who you are as an individual, as a candidate for the job, but then you have the chance to put your personality into play and really create a full picture for any company, HR person that you are coming in contact with. And it lets you stand out to know what makes you unique from another candidate who might have similar experiences to yours. Okay. And then one of the most important topics that we'll all touch on in some way during this presentation is building your network. Engagement is key when you're trying to build your network across these platforms. And we'll all dive into how the terms on the screen relate to each of our specific, social media platforms. But obviously, knowledge, being able to show what you know about the industry or the field, and also going deeper into the knowledge that you have. Schmoozing or mingling, allowing yourself to connect with people in your industry or field, trying to find micro-influencers or large companies that, put out information that you can learn from, just so you can stay up to date and know the right people within the right circles to connect with. Personal involvement in your brand presence would be sharing your work, any projects that you may have worked on during the school year, or any of your own personal talents that you want to display, as well as your services, any resources that work for your field, maybe in your career search as well, and services. And then lastly, I think the most important when it comes to social media, the reason that we all go to these networks is because we want to dialogue. We want to ask questions and we want to grow our understanding. We want to brainstorm off of each other and learn from one another. And the only way to do that is to engage. So that is kind of the brief overview of what we'll be talking about today and why it's so important for us to talk about the conversation, this topic that we're having today. I am going to turn direction over to Timothy Bryson, who will be talking about Twitter.
Awesome, thanks, Kenyatta. And so social media, really digital platforms, super important to me, but also everyone on this panel today. For me personally, I found every job that I've had up to this point through social media. So whether it's been through Twitter, GroupMe, Facebook, Instagram, at some point in time throughout the process, I was engaged with someone who worked for the company through my social media. Twitter, which is the first platform that we'll speak about today, is extremely important because as it relates to digital platforms, Twitter is an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing networking platform. It's an ongoing informational interviewing platform. And so to control what employers see, to control what organizations see, first and foremost, honor that first impression, which is first your profile picture as well as your bio. What do you want the world to know? And that's the first thing that I always ask students, also peers when they're creating their Twitter or revamping their Twitter. Because that's crucial to put that in your bio so that that's the first thing they see, but the first thing they can also refer to, when having conversation with you. Personality is extremely encouraged. And so if you use emojis, use emojis. If you say certain words like y'all, like I say y'all all the time, like I'm gonna include y'all like in my bio, but also my tweets. Additionally, in your bio, you wanna cultivate affinity. So as we may or may not know, but through Twitter, you can add different accounts. And so, include any organization, any affinity groups that you're a part of to show that, one, you're connected with said group, but then two, those that will come in contact with your profile have, more of a reason to engage with you, both online and offline as well. Lastly, within the bio section, include any personal websites, LinkedIn URL, your LinkedIn URL, or any websites or social causes you may be passionate about. And again, I will show an example of that in just a second. So as you know, you have your profile picture, you have your bio, but then in the background, similar to LinkedIn, you have a header. One platform that you can use to create a header that is not just visible, but also congruent to who you are is Canva. So using Canva, and they have different formats that you can use, but they also have a header section that you can honestly just pull a template from. But in this, in your header, you want to include your mission and vision statement if possible, right? And if you can't include the entire statement, include a few words, keywords that are important to you. You can also include your personal values in that header section because, again, people are going to read, top to bottom, left to right. And so making sure that you have a first impression that is one that you want to be strong and one that you want to be memorable is extremely important. And last but certainly not least, your picture. So your profile picture does not have to be, I follow the same guidelines as LinkedIn, but it can be something that's related to your career or personal life. But again, I want to emphasize that personality is key in every phase of your Twitter profile. So as we click to the next slide, I wanted to include an example of what my current Twitter, current and really forever Twitter has looked like over the last several months. So you see where the cursor is right now, my profile picture. So I'm not wearing a bow tie today. but I'm often in a bow tie. So when people see this picture, and see me on campus, they see congruence, and it's easy for me to be recognized in person as it is on social media. Jumping up to the header, you see the words identify passion, inspire vision, and walk in purpose, which is my personal mission statement. It's something that you'll continue to hear be reiterated through every platform, whether that's my Twitter, my Instagram, podcast, LinkedIn. You'll see those three statements anywhere you look. Your ad name is extremely important. So similar to any email addresses that you would have created, making sure it's appropriate, for your role and for your career. Making sure it identifies who you are. You don't want people to have to look at your Twitter and then try to Google you to find out what your real name is. Just be straight up and use a name that reflects who you are, but also who you want to become. As I mentioned before, your bio is extremely important to creating affinity, but also creating connections with your followers on the Twitter platform. So as you read my bio, I include an educator as I work at the University of Maryland. I'm currently a student like yourselves. I'm at the University of Maryland as well. Scrolling through, you'll see that I used to work at the NCAA. I'm an alum of Ohio State and South Carolina. And so I added those accounts so that people, one, saw that who I was connected to, but then two, to highlight, showcase, and really promote the organizations and institutions that I worked for and have attended in the past. Go Mob is something as my fraternity motto. So anyone that's related to my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, they know that I'm a brother in that fraternity, but also across the Divine Nine, council as well. I included my pronouns, not just to show that I am aware, but also inclusive of and understand the importance of using personal pronouns, and not just in person, but also on digital platforms as well. And then including my podcast, that's something I'm continuing to try to promote and increase listeners for as we travel along our journeys together. You can include the location. So the location, as you see, is 513, which is not any area code related to the DMV, but that is the area code of Cincinnati, Ohio, which I do call home. So again, those that may come to my profile and see, read my bio, they see my header, and then they say, oh, he's from Cincinnati, he's an Ohioan. Again, that could be a point of contact and a point of communication that I can leverage in the future. And then last but not least, my link tree, which is a link that includes a bunch of different links that I have connections and ownership of, but easily clickable for people to read and follow. And last but not least, my birthday is on March 18th on Pisces. So if you all want to share any birthday gifts with me next year, happy to receive that over in the Xfinity Center. So that's my profile, but I want to highlight a profile of a student at the University of Maryland. So this is Taylor Wilson. Taylor's currently a rising sophomore on the softball team. And I included her profile because I know when looking at my past Twitter bio and header, it may have seemed overwhelming as it relates to, you don't have that many experiences, you don't know what to say, you've been working in the field a little bit longer than I have. And so as a current student, I work with Taylor to truly help her identify what she wants to include on her Twitter. So first and foremost, looking at the header, as you all know, if you don't know, that's the Nats Stadium, the reigning world champions. So she's a big Nats fan. So anyone that comes on her page, whether you like baseball or not, like sports is something that's important to Taylor. Her profile picture is one that she chose not to use a composite photo, but an action shot of her at bat in a Maryland uniform. So again, you're creating community and affinity with those who enter or who visit your page. Looking at her bio, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made is a part of a Bible verse. So those who share Taylor's same religion or spirituality, instant connection. She added Terp softball, which is something she did not do in the past. So she just had University of Maryland softball team. But I said, to be more concise, but also show affinity to your school and your program. Let's include that at. And then be a good human, do the right thing is her personal motto. And she also included her pronouns as well. Same thing. She included a link to a website for a social cause that she's extremely passionate about, not just right now, but in her professional and personal life. And my birthday is next March, but her birthday is September. So feel free to drop off anything in Xfinity in a couple of months. Next slide for us, Rachel. So a couple of things related to Twitter that I want to really want to highlight, which is the direct messaging feature. So sending a DM. This is extremely important, particularly to help take the conversation offline. So as I mentioned before, conversation on Twitter is ongoing. It's really infinite in many ways. And so to help personalize and humanize technology, DMs are an important part to not only be aware of, but also utilize in your engagement on this platform. As I mentioned before, you can continue dialogue from the timeline from your TL. So if you've seen, over the last 12 or so hours, for example, the noose that was found in Bubba Wallace's garage, the NASCAR race down in Talladega. Your TL may have deviated from having more poignant conversations about what had happened with NASCAR. That's an opportunity that if you saw a tweet that someone has shared, to send them a DM and say, hey, insert name. I saw that you tweeted, said language. Would love to talk with you more about, your thoughts, right? A conversation, a more organic conversation that you can have without broadcasting it into the entire world. You can provide and seek clarification from tweets. So if someone shares something that you may have a question about that you don't feel comfortable, replying to directly on your timeline, again, just shooting them a DM. It's important to understand that oftentimes you both have to be following each other, so keep that in mind. But another way to help, learn more about what's being shared on your TL. You can connect with industry-specific professionals, and so as Kenyatta had mentioned, building community is going to be a common thread throughout all of our slides today. And so being mindful of who you follow, but also how you engage with different people on Twitter. It's great for informational interviews, and I've done several, not even several, tens and maybe hundreds of informational interviews from people that I've met on Twitter, given that they have similar profiles on LinkedIn as well. But the big thing that I want to emphasize from this slide is that communicate on Twitter, particularly in the DM feature, similar to how you would an email. So, address the person by name, right? Close off with your name. If it's someone that you may not know as well, include your email address so they can follow up with you offline or off of Twitter, should they decide to do so. But you don't want to get into the situation where you feel like you're texting someone in a DM, right? You can use Twitter in ways that are more professional. You can use Twitter in ways that are more deliberate than many other social platforms. But be mindful of how you're communicating. One of the things about Twitter that's extremely unique is that you can have industry-specific community conversation. These things can be great for idea generation and think takes, right? Oftentimes, whether it's on Zoom or even group discussions in class or in person, people's voices are not always heard. In Twitter chats, you have an opportunity where everyone has an equal voice to contribute to the conversation. One of the phenomenal things about Twitter chats is that you're bringing a community of people, not just across the country, but across the world, to have discussion on different topics, which gives you an opportunity to not only add value to a conversation, but also elevate your personal brand. Prime example of this is that someone I know hosted a Twitter chat a couple weeks ago and got 200 followers just from hosting the chat. We understand followers aren't everything, but it can help build your professional community and engage with people who are like-minded and purpose-driven as well. Some examples of different Twitter chats that I've seen. The first one is YP Sports Chat, which stands for Young Professional Sports Chat. So for those who want to, work in sports or work in a field that runs parallel to sports, I would highly suggest you search this hashtag on Twitter and engage with this chat. It's every Tuesday. And then the new normal, which is something that our athletic department and the athletic department at the University of South Carolina hosted together twice over the last several months. So last thing from Twitter, and this is going to be, again, a common thread, a congruent thread throughout the presentation, is self-governance. We aren't here to tell you what to post or what not to post, but are here to encourage you to think about what rules guide what you post, right? And that's not just the tweets themselves, but also pictures, videos, and emojis. What rules guide, who and what you tag on Twitter, what you retweet versus quote tweet, what you decide to DM to different people. But one that I think does not get enough attention is what you decide to like and comment, which is just as impactful and influential in how you show up in this digital space that we refer to as the bird or Twitter. But most importantly, make sure you write these things down to keep yourselves aware and mindful of it as we transition to our next digital platform.
All right, I'm back, guys. All right, I will be talking about Instagram today. Thank you, Tim, for that awesome overview on Twitter. For me, Instagram is my social media platform of choice. So I think that it's important to build authentic relationships online now more than ever. We're very disconnected, and so it's important to feel connected to those that you can through our digital platforms. And there's a multitude of ways to do that and focus your social media efforts around your career success. So right now, very paramount that we as users go beyond passively scrolling and move to like actively engaging with our professional networks. So the first thing on my list is showcasing yourself. Just as Timothy just explained, you know, everything from your profile picture, which is a little less apparent on Instagram. You get your little circle right at the top. So there's not too much you can do to make that a bad first impression. But more importantly, your bio on Instagram is what typically catches new followers' eyes. So I like to think of my bio as a brief elevator pitch. Your elevator pitch is gonna typically be no longer than 30 seconds if you're talking face-to-face or even virtually with an employer. So think of it as an even briefer elevator pitch. You can use snap phrases to mention your goals or aspirations, as well as any accomplishments that you are working on currently or have achieved in the past. It's like a sneak peek into who you are before I have to scroll through your grid to figure that out. So definitely take some time to craft that image and make sure that it represents who you are and what you're gonna see when you come to my page. Obviously, it's very important to find new and creative ways to display your talents and projects. I think when it comes to your journey through undergraduate, you know, you work on a lot of projects. Obviously, you're working on your major to move into a career. So we have work as projects, group assignments, and even things that we discover on our own, our hobbies that we throw ourselves into. Instagram is a great way to snapshot all the work that you've been doing over the course of the months, whether in school or on your own in your free time, and chronicleize that for people to see. So say you're a robotics major and your last class assignment, you had a group assignment to work together and create your robot in whatever the assignment was. A picture with your team and a picture of your finished product that you built. Nice caption to say what is the purpose of this, this electronic, your robot, and it explains to people what you did and why it should be relevant to them. Now, say your followers aren't necessarily a part of the industry that you're posting that content for. That is where your hashtags would come into play. We'll talk about hashtags a little later in our Instagram overview. But again, piggybacking off of Tim, personality and authenticity is key. We can't tell you what not to post, and granted, for some employers, they might favor a bit more personable content than others. It really just depends on the industry that you are trying to pursue. So figure out what you want the world to know about you, and figure out how you can make that come across with your photos. Developing connections and building networks. Instagram has instituted quite a few features that helps to now build community on the platform rather than passively scrolling and liking images. So the save feature, Instagram Save, is a good way to start to access content that you found and favorited anytime. With all the algorithms on Instagram, new posts and generated content tends to get pushed down on our timeline, so we are not able to access everything that the people that we follow post in a timely manner. So with the save feature, you can kind of fight back on that Instagram and curate a feed which is more attuned to what you're looking for. You can use the feature to create like an industry bucket. So if you are a marketer and you want to learn about different types of marketing, you'll go to a hashtag marketing, and you might find digital marketing, email marketing, and then social media marketing. 3 different realms, but they all fall under marketing. Within your save feature, you can take the specific content, create a folder, and begin to build up the circle of content that gets generated by your save features. Think of it like a super like on Tinder. That's about the equivalent of an Instagram save over just liking the content on Instagram. You'll be able to find it quicker when you need to access it, and it'll begin to populate your field your timeline in a new way. Hashtags are also a good way to curate your feed. Now you're able to follow hashtags that resonate with you. So instead of just having to go to the search and discovery feature, you can get content populated right on your timeline based on that feature, or excuse me, based on that hashtag. So it'll be mixed in with your current followers, whether that's family and friends, but then you can start to be exposed to different topics and subject areas and content within the industries that you're looking to follow. Using hashtags when you post your content as well allows you to gain relevant followers to your topic, people that might not be able to find you due to the algorithms, and it can incite engagement with your posts. So you want to use that to find those like-minded people and those influencers within your industries as well. Oh, you can go back, Rachel, one more thing. And conversation, joining the conversation. Obviously, none of this matters if we are not engaging with the people in our circles and the content. So sliding into the DMs, you can laugh at that, and I'm sure we all think of the same thing when we hear the phrase, but direct messaging, it allows you to step outside of the bubble that is Instagram and start a new conversation offline. I don't need to go too deep into that because Tim did a great overview of direct messaging. On most of the platforms, they're generally the same in how they operate, but you want to use original and non-generic copy that highlights that you've taken the time to explore or research the content that was posted, either the individual's background or if it's a company that you're reaching out to online as well. It just shows, just in a cover letter, you would tailor your content to the employer or the position that you are applying to. You want to do the same thing with your job, or excuse me, with your direct message. And you can also use find employee profiles at companies that you're interested in to figure out what type of content they post. So you can see, do we align in some of the values that the employees have as well? You can figure out, is this a good fit for me based on some of the image that you curate from the employee profiles? So that's also a good way to find out and do some digging into the background of a company. It's very important, and this is a good tip, to take notice in how individuals communicate with their audience, whether it's conversational, informative, or friendly and strong. And when you reach out in a direct message, you want to make sure you kind of try to mirror the tone or the writing style that the individual uses. Yes, make it authentic to you, but it helps to establish a sense of trust between you guys since you don't really know each other. We like to see ourselves in other people, and that's a great way to kind of break the ice a little bit. And then obviously watch and reply to IG stories. I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory, but it's just another way to jump into the conversation. I have a few pictures I'll go through really quick, just so you all, just in case you didn't know. So the Instagram Safe feature that I mentioned can be used by going on to Twitter and clicking that little bookmark icon that's right down in the bottom under any post. Once you click that bookmark, you'll be, a little box will raise up from the bottom, and it'll ask you if you want to save it to a folder, a bookmarked folder that you've already created, or you can save it into a general post. So the second picture on this page just shows some of the different folders that I've created for our University Career Center. You know, social media inspiration that I like the way this was laid out, so I want to reference it for later. Career advice that might have been good to hear online that we can repurpose for later. So it's all in what you want to do and how you want to break down the different research areas that you are interested in. And here are some examples of professional versus personal Instagram grids. So this first Instagram is by Find Spark. Emily Meether is a colleague of mine, and this is one of her companies. So this is more of a professional Instagram grid. She chooses to keep her personal and professional separate. You can see there's a lot of text posts and just notes to, for example, things that are going on in our world right now, as well as her content on career help. This is a great profile for you to follow if you're looking for some career tips as well. So Find Spark, but this keeps it pretty clean, professional. There's no images of people. So it's more informational. Next, please. Now this is a personal Instagram grid. This is one of my personal profiles that I didn't mind sharing. I would not mind if my employer were to find this profile of me. it has nothing to do necessarily with my career goals, but it engages my users and my followers, and it allows my company to see who I am and what I'm into. If the University Career Center came across this profile before I was an employee, to me, it would say I'm fun, I like to cook, and I'm motivational. So if that's the image you wanted to create for yourself, this profile is private. Anyone can find it. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm okay with this being online. And then the last but not least, this is one of our recent graduates from the University of Maryland. Her name is Misha Buckner, and she is a creative. She is a photographer, an artist, and this is her professional and sort of personal account. So what she uses is she puts up her artwork, whether it's drawing or painting or her photography, but then she also posts some snapshots and candids of herself. I believe her first picture is a play on one of the latest TikTok trends where everyone's taking their mirror outside and like taking all the cool pictures. So she still has some personality thrown in there while you can see the visual representation of her work. And it's a great example of the best of both worlds kind of Instagram layout. So I hope I, gave you some good tips. I hope you found some necessary information in here, and I'm gonna hand it over to Rachel, who is gonna be covering LinkedIn for us.
Thanks, Kenyatta. Thanks, Tim. Just a quick reminder, if you have questions, you can be sending those in now to Kenyatta. You can also wait till the end, but just throwing that out there. So I'm gonna talk about LinkedIn, which I joke is the least fun social media. I say that as someone who would rather spend hours on Instagram than on LinkedIn, but I do work in career services and I know the value of it and how important it is, and hopefully you do too. I think most people think of LinkedIn as the professional social media, although we've seen that both Instagram and Twitter can be that as well. I think what most people know of LinkedIn is that it can be in your online resume, and that is true. It's a great place to have all of your work and your experiences gathered together so someone can see it, but it can be so much more than that. Of course, this is a place to cultivate both professional and personal connections. I've talked to students that think it's just a place for professional connections, and if someone isn't in their field or industry, they shouldn't connect with them on LinkedIn, and that's false. Absolutely. Connect with your classmates, your roommate, your friends, your cousins, uncles, whoever, regardless of what field they're in, because they may have a connection that would then be your second connection that could be in your field. You might also know someone that you can connect them to. So please remember that on LinkedIn, it doesn't just have to be people in your field. It can be people that you know that are in other fields as well. This is also a place like our other apps and sites to follow companies or organizations that you're interested in. If they're posting something there, it's something that they want people to know about. This is often a place where they might brag about a project they're working on or an award that they received, or they were called best company for X, Y, and Z. So this is a way for you to find out that information and then use that information when you're applying. Maybe it's something you add to your cover letter because you saw that they just won this award, or it's something that you use when you reach out for an informational interview with someone, or you use it in an interview. But it's a great way to find information. It's the information that they want you to know because they're sharing it out. So that's a good place to find it. Join groups. This could be groups from specific professional organizations. Personally, I'm in a group that's the Eastern Association of Colleges and Employers, but you can also be a part of groups that are just started by, someone in student affairs that wants to say, all student affairs professionals that are interested in this, join this group. It can be a way to broaden your network and get to know more people that are interested in the same work field industry that you're in. It can also be a place to either write recommendations or gather your own recommendations from past or current colleagues. My trick, the best way to get a recommendation is to write one for someone else. You write a quick, and they don't have to be long, a quick recommendation for someone, chances are they're gonna return the favor to you and write a quick recommendation. You can, of course, always ask for them. If you know you're gonna be job searching and you want some more recommendations on your LinkedIn page, reach out to someone and say, would you be willing to write a recommendation for me for LinkedIn? I'd love to write one for you too. I think besides the fact that most people, if you have a good relationship, would want to do it for you anyways. If they know that you're going to write one for them, that's an extra motivation. Plus, it can make you feel better knowing that you're not just asking for something without willing to give something in return. LinkedIn, of course, is a place to share articles, either ones that maybe you've written or ones that you found interesting on hot topics or current trends in your field, share events that you plan to go to or are hosting, and of course, projects. The biggest thing about LinkedIn, and unfortunately, I think the thing that most people don't know is how you can use it to find other people using the Career Insights search tool. So I do list a link there, and it will be on the next couple slides as well. But the link will go to a video to show you how to get to what I'm about to show you in screenshots. So LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to go to your university page. So in the search bar, typing in University of Maryland. Once you get there, there's a bar on the left-hand side that says has a menu of things. One of them is alumni. So when I click to the next page, you'll see on the left-hand side there's that menu. When you click alumni, it will bring you to this page. And this is where you can search the people that are on LinkedIn that say they went to Maryland. So you can see there's over 300,000 people. This is my favorite tool and reason to use LinkedIn. Like I said, I feel like most people don't know it, which is why there's that link at the bottom. It'll show you how to get here and kind of walk you through the process if you haven't seen this tool before. But basically, you can use that search bar to search by a number of different things, keywords, titles. You can also use start and stop date at the top. If you want to find a more recent alum, maybe not someone who's further in their career, but someone who's closer and remembers what it's like to be a student, you could change that start year to 2015 if you want to. You can kind of play around with those things. And then there are these categories that are kind of at the middle of the page there. So you can see you can search by where they live. If your job search or people that you want to connect with are in the DC area, you can click on that bar right underneath Washington, DC metro area, and it will then filter it down to 121,000 and show those people that meet that filter underneath. You can also look by where they work. You'll see University of Maryland is at the top. It's always at the top, at least for this area. And that's not just because we all come back to work at Maryland like myself, but that a lot of people might have jobs that they had part-time or internships while they were on campus at Maryland. And so those positions show up too. So what you can do there is, again, like if you're interested in Deloitte, click on Deloitte's bar, or if there's a company that you're not seeing in that 10 to 15 that they show you on the website, click that ad in the corner and then start typing in the organization that you're interested in. I have seen big companies, small companies, it all just depends on where we have someone from Maryland working. So even if it's just one person, you could search for it and find them. When you click next at the top of the page, right above where they live, they'll take you to the next set of categories, and they are what they do. So you can look by industry or field, also what they studied. So again, it'll show the top 10 or 15. So if your major is not there, click add and start typing it in. But again, you can click on it if you see yours. You'll see that right underneath, there's the start of what are people's profiles. This is what happens as you play with those filters. As you play with those filters, they show you the profiles and the people that fall in those numbers. So if I were to click computer science, this would narrow me down to 16,577, and those couple of people would potentially change. But then you have the opportunity to find the people that are doing the work that you're interested in, potentially in the area that you're interested in, and look at their profiles, see what experiences they've had, and request to connect. Biggest recommendation, always add a note. This is huge. If you don't know someone, you can still request to connect, and I would encourage it. If you're doing it and you found them through this, click to add a note when you request to connect and say, I see that you went to Maryland, I saw that you majored in this, or I see that you work here and I'm interested in that. Can we connect? Give them some context. I'm sure you've all had someone that has requested to follow you on one of your sites and you're like, I don't know who you are, I have no idea why, or they want to connect with you on LinkedIn and you're not sure whether you want to or not. If someone gives you that context, you're going to be more likely to say, oh yeah, sure, great. You're interested in the same thing I am, let's connect. It's going to lead to people that don't know you being more likely to accept your request to connect. All right, so switching out of the LinkedIn sphere for a minute and going back to all of the overarching social medias and the sites that we've talked about, you really want to use these sites to find and to build your community or to build your network of people. Following appropriate professional organizations can be a great way to do that. If you are interested in sports writing or sports journalism, finding the professional organizations that promote that field in that industry and following them on any and all of these to see what they're posting and what things are happening are going to be a great way for you to stay tuned in and to join in that conversation. We've already kind of talked about some of the other sites like Twitter and Instagram, learning the hashtags to follow that are appropriate to your interests, making sure to follow them. A huge other point, follow up. Don't just connect with people and forget about them. It can be great, and you can have, 500 connections on LinkedIn, but if you don't follow up with some of them and the ones that you're more interested in staying connected with, it's going to be harder to come back into conversation with that person if it's been a while since you've talked. So that doesn't mean you have to connect with all 500 people every week or every month, but those people that you really want to connect with, you want to make sure that you're following up and, checking in to see how they are, or how that project they said they were working on is doing, or share an article that you think they might be interested in, any way to kind of keep that connection open. And then, of course, please be sure to add your value and your voice to the dialogue. Mutual exchange of energy is really important. A good user of any of these sites is someone who's an active learner. And what we mean by that is someone who's not just going to lurk and see what other people are saying and posting, but someone who's going to add to the conversation, add their voice, talk about how they interpreted what they're seeing, or their experience, their perspective. You don't want to just think of other people as the experts. You want to remember that your voice and your experience is important as well. So now I'm tapping Tim again.
Awesome. So as we wrap up today, just a few reminders. First and foremost, again, self-govern, self-governance. Identify and clarify and define what your rules will be while engaging, not just in real life, but also on digital platforms. Number two, understand that digital platforms are an extension of your personal brand, not something different or new, but an extension of who you are. And congruence is super important. That's to be super to the tech when it's not. Build your own community and network, so individualize your own experience and mitigate imposter syndrome. Job search is always happening. So as I mentioned about Twitter, but also very true about LinkedIn and Instagram as well. But every time you leave your house, you're networking. Every time you open your mouth, you're interviewing. Your digital platform is in a continuous job search. Is always happening. So be mindful of how you're engaging on those sites. And last but certainly not least, keep your information up to date. So if you graduate or you get a new job, update that on LinkedIn. If you move, update that on your social media platform, because people are always looking, wanting to engage with you based off some of those characteristics and attributes.
So really briefly, before we get into questions, I will send out the link in the chat again. If you didn't have a chance to register, we'd appreciate if you take a moment to do that. There's a link. You go to the link, it'll ask for an access number, which is just 1234, and you can add your UID. At this point, Kenyatta, have you had any questions yet, or do people want to share any questions with Kenyatta? We can ask those and share them. If at this point I know we've gone over, you need to step off, totally understand. But otherwise, we'll answer some of the questions that Kenyatta's received.
So I don't see any questions coming through the chat, but if you have any, please feel free to pop them in now. Otherwise, nothing came through while we were presenting.
Someone asked me about getting a recording of this video. It will be posted to our YouTube. We will also send an email out to everyone that registered. So we'll be able to, because you RSVP'd through Careers for Terps, everyone will get a link with some follow-up information, as well as the link to get to the recording of this. If you do have trouble though, or don't see it in a couple of days, feel free to reach out to any of us. Our emails are at the top of the slide. We can make sure you get it.
So we do have a question from Aviva Lucas. Please forgive me if I butcher your name. So how do you keep in touch with contacts when it has been a while? Either one.
All right, I'll step in. If it's been a while, I think just kind of being humbled to know that they might have forgotten how or why they connected with you. So like if it's been a couple of years, but you happen to remember that you met them at a conference or from a class or something, I think it's perfectly okay to reach out and say, I know it's been a while. I thought of you because of X, Y, and Z, or I don't know if you remember, but this is where we met, like giving them that context of, you know, we met at this conference or we had this class together. I think that's totally fine. And then just kind of let them know why you're reaching out or what made you think of them. You know, if it's something like an article you thought they liked, that's easy enough. If it's something where it's maybe more like job search related because you realize that they now work somewhere, you know, you can always say, oh, I see that you work here now, or I've gotten to the point now where I'm job searching. I'd love to ask you a few questions about how you like working there. I would say start from a place of asking for advice or to ask to talk about their experience. Don't jump into, hey, can you get me a job at this company? Which I think most people know, but I always like to say it just in case.
Okay. Next, we have a question from Denise Johnson. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. That's my mom's name. That's crazy. Denise has been wanting to expand their presence on social media, but they say they are a bit awkward and shy. What's the best opener for sliding into someone's DMs? I will personally say sometimes it just takes introducing yourself. You don't have to say anything clever. You know, you don't have to come up with some catchy opening, but just be honest. Hi, I came across your profile and I saw this picture. You know, find a piece of content that resonates with you or something that they may mention, whether it's in the story, in the caption, and say, I saw this thing and it really interested me. I would love to hear your thoughts on XYZ. You know, you can come up with your own opening and it doesn't have to be some big shebang. You don't need to, you know, give them your whole elevator pitch, like we said. You know, that's not what it is. You're just wanting to establish a connection. So then maybe it starts on Instagram or Twitter, but we decide to move it over to LinkedIn so we can actually see some of your formal career background or educational background. You know, it's just a way of bridging that gap when you're sliding into someone's DMs so that you can get their email or you can figure out where more of their information lies. Tim, Rachel, good. Aviva also asks how to transition between just talk and actual job offers. And I think Rachel just kind of spoke on that when she was answering your first question. But I think it's important to, yes, you're not reaching out through the DMs just to say, hey, I saw this job, can you help me out? You know, that's not, we want to establish a network and build community. So that is always the first goal of connecting on these channels. And then I think that eventually you can ask for information, you know, where can I find information about your company and what they are currently offering? Or do you work with our schools? You transition the conversation into the work that they do and the jobs that they have, but never really to getting a job offer. While people do find candidates online a lot more than they have in the past, I doubt that anyone's like giving you an official job offer through your direct messaging.
Yeah. You hit it right in the head, Kenyatta. My favorite trick is to ask for an informational interview. So let's say you connect with someone on any of these platforms and you say like, I'd love to chat with you sometime. I'd love to ask you about your career path and how you got there. So that way you're asking for advice. You know, most people, you know, like to talk to them about themselves a little bit and they want to help new people in the field, right? So you can have that conversation and ask them questions. And even, you know, at the end, kind of slyly mention, you know, if you ever hear about anything that you think I might be interested in based on what I've told you, or, you know, ask them the question, like, what's the best place to find out about open internships at your organization or about jobs? And, you know, if it's not an obvious like careers page, but that can happen at the end of your first conversation. You just don't want to make it, you know, the first thing you say to them.
Okay, next we have a question from Michael Whiteman. How detrimental is it to have no social media accounts versus no LinkedIn versus only LinkedIn?
All right, as someone who works for Career Services, I'm going to tell you, you have to have LinkedIn. I've known people that haven't, but I think just having another place that if they Google you, they can see your resume is always a good thing. And hopefully if you do some more exploring of the Career Insights tool that I showed you, hopefully that will inspire you to want to at least be on, because you want to connect with people and you're going to want a good profile and all your information filled out if you're going to start reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I think if social media isn't your thing for other sites, you don't necessarily have to. Because there are certain people that would even have social media but don't use it for professional, and that's kind of the same as not using it at all, at least in the professional realm. But I think it also depends on the industry you're interested in. You know, if you're interested in marketing and you're not on some of these sites and know what you need to know about how they work, you're going to do yourself a great disservice, and marketing people would wonder. I'm sure there are other careers where it's not as big a part of your job, and so it may not be as necessary, but I don't know. And at the end of the day, it's a personal preference. I've known people who completely don't want to be on it. But like I said, I'm going to make the fight for at least LinkedIn.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's very industry, specific. By no means is it mandatory, but it's great to have. And if you haven't done this, by the way, just Google yourself to see what comes up. From personal experience, I have never really posted anything bad, but just random photos from a Flickr account that I had when I was like 12. And like, I didn't even know I had a camera back then, but that stuff is findable. You don't realize it, but in some way, shape, or form, you put your name and connect it to these accounts. And so it really, if people know what to do, they can find anything online.
One of our wonderful colleagues just chatted me, and she had made up a very good point. You can also set up a Google alert with your name to see what new content is posted. So thanks, Lauren. I appreciate your participation today, because that's a really great point. Like, know what's out there. Because here's the thing. If your name is Rachel Wilbrecht, let's say, there are two of us. I actually have a second cousin who has the exact same first, middle, and last name, but like Wilbrecht, pretty uncommon, right? So if you search that, you're going to find me. If your name is Matthew Smith, there are a lot of people, and so chances are you can hide, and that's good and bad, right? So like, if I want to show my professional persona and my personality, the fact that I have an easily Googleable and findable name is great. If there were things that I wanted to hide, not as great. But that can hurt you too. If your name is Matt Smith, people may not find you. They're going to find the famous Matt Smith first. If there is a famous Matt Smith, I don't know.
Okay, so we're almost out of time, but I have one more question. And Aviva Lucas did say thank you. I didn't know about informational interviews. I always have difficulties with transitioning between polite conversation and getting into logistics. Hence my question. Appreciate the info. And our last question is from Denise again. And they want to know, would it be a good idea to try to post once a week on all platforms? Life on social media moves so fast, and it seems pretty hard to stay present if you're not posting all of the time. Personally, I think it's important to post more quality over quantity when it comes to the content that you're posting. So if you have something important to say or share once a week, then by all means do that. And it's not impossible to repurpose the same piece of content across multiple platforms. For example, LinkedIn would be kind of your longer length if you had like blog posts or a story that you wrote or anything for class, while Instagram is more going to be a snapshot of whatever the project is. And then Twitter could just be your idea, like talking about the idea, the subject matter, rather than the actual content. So it doesn't have to be once a week. You don't have to have a set schedule, but just make sure that whatever you're posting, when you're posting it, is impactful. So that's my thoughts.
I completely agree. I think if you have something to share it. If you don't force it. I think also remembering that you can repurpose other people's. So like, you can stay active and in the conversation by retweeting someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be something like new that you created.
Even capitalizing on somebody's point, just to say, I think that was a great point, and you can give a contrasting view, and it could start and generate an entire conversation right there in the comments, where you didn't post the content, but now you've created 3 new possible followers or connections just because you all started to engage. So.
I also want to say very briefly before we finish up here, I'm glad that I could introduce informational interviews if you hadn't thought about that, or if you don't know what those are. Obviously, you can Google it, but if you have questions, please feel free to email me or any of us. But I'm happy to talk about informational interviews and some of my like tips for like thinking about questions to ask and things like that. But if that's the end of questions, and I think it is, right, Kenyatta?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. Again, our contact information is there. Reach out if you have questions. Good luck. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy
y'all.
your summer. Hey, Lydia.
Lydia's lurking. I'll unmute her if she wants to. Oh, she might have stepped away because I'm.
No,
Oh,
I'm here. Can
there
you
she
hear me?
is. Yeah, I see her now. I was like requesting that you unmute. Nothing was happening. I was like, uh-oh.
Nice.
Hi.
That was so helpful to me. My gosh, listen, you need to make sure that everybody in the office knows about this. That was
I
really
realized I
helpful.
should stop recording this.
Oh, yes, please do.
Uh,
You can cut that part. Yeah. You cannot unmute yourself because the host muted you, but
I
I'm
let
on,
you.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We hear you. Well, thanks for tuning